Everybody, I've had a wonderful experience getting to know Michael and Raphael over the last day, and I know you're going to have an absolutely wonderful experience today. Please give a warm welcome for Michael Tamura.
Happy birthday, Diane. Are these all your guides? Their presents are great. Good afternoon. I'm used to either evening or morning, and this is the middle of the day in Chicago. I'm just adjusting. Like somebody said, it's a lot more difficult to be alive here than over there. 9 months ago, I was taking a nice morning right at the sunrise in my favorite city, Zurich, Switzerland. I was taking a little jog to the lake, and beautiful day. It was my last day, full day with Raphael there. We've been teaching for 2 weeks, and we had a day off, which is a rare occasion. and so I thought I'd start off the day with a little jog to the lake and meditate, and then we were going to be taken to see the Black Madonna at Einsiedeln Church, which I've been to, and I wanted to show Raphael. So I stopped by at the lake after about a 20, 30-minute, well, it's maybe longer. It was quite a jog, but not too hard. And I started slowing down, and next thing I know, I'm just slowing down, and I'm headed to the lake again. And so, like Raphael said, when you're out, and you're going. But this time, I had a very different experience. Every time you die, it's different. Guarantee it, it's different. And everybody who dies, it's going to be a different experience. There's some common denominators that you'll hear about, but generally it's a very unique experience for each individual soul. So when I go on, I'm just going, and the next thing, there's another light. And it's coming from my body, and it's a harsh light. And when I died the year before, somebody was talking to several people about near death and perfect death and imperfect death and sort of dead and sort of not dead, all that. I don't split hairs. But the year before when I died, I was in rigor mortis when they found me. And good thing I didn't have to find me. But that time I was deader than a doorknob, they said. But this time, because of the earlier death, the third time I died, they implanted this what I call a paramedic in a box. You know, in those ER shows, they have the paramedics with the paddles, clear! Well, there's this really little guy inside this little box in my chest. They implanted after my third death, and because the doctors couldn't trust me, and they're going, this guy really needs some help. And so they made sure that in case my heart stopped again, which it did, this thing will zap it back, if it can. Well, it zapped me the first time, and this little harsh light is in my heart, brings me back. It's like being on a bungee cord. And I'm going up that way and being yanked back, and boy, that was traumatic. Coming back is very traumatic. Very sudden and unexpected. It's like, you know, those scenes in the movie, da 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 da, and you're back. And I'm just like, whoa. And I could hardly breathe, and I was very, very disoriented. And that's really hard for me. I'm perfectly oriental. I can bend over and show you it says made in Japan. So, but even so, I was disoriented. I was going, whoa. And then I guess my heart didn't fully kick on. It wasn't pumping any blood into my brain or anything. So the thing has a computer chip in it and everything. It registers the heart activity, electrical activity, and it registers it doesn't have any. So it zaps me the second time, full voltage. That was very traumatic, and I must have yelled out because it really knocked me on my butt on the grass. And this young Swiss woman speaking German comes with a little baby in her carriage and asked me if I needed help. And when you're in those kind of situations, you're thinking of a lot of different things, and I'm assessing. I felt like those androids with a, computer chip going, and I'm scanning her and go, oh, she doesn't speak English. I don't really speak German. And she's a mother with a little baby in the carriage, and she's asking for help. No, this is going to be too complicated. I said, no, thank you. I just died. It's fine. And so she goes off. It's like, of course, who do I call? Well, aside from the Ghostbusters, I call Raphael. And this is also why I have one of these nice bracelets from the medical people. What I really wanted to put on here, on the front side, I wanted to put, if found dead, return to maker. And then on the other side, I wanted to put, if found still breathing, call wife. Because the call, I think it was Gary, one of the board members of Chicago Lions, this morning, we were having breakfast with the board, and fun guy, great guy. He just goes, oh, Raphael had post-traumatic stress syndrome from you being dead so many times. Which is not too far from the truth, because the person who's still in the physical and seeing and experiencing your loved one die, that's traumatic. For the one dying, it's not traumatic at all. It's, I'm out of here. So, the year and 9 months ago, or a year and 10 months ago, when I had my third death experience, I was on one of those elliptical machines in the gym, local gym, and see, I should never exercise. And it's not during when I'm exercising, it's usually when I stop. So, I get myself in that picture of, life is a treadmill and you can't get off. The minute I step off, but I'm on this elliptical machine, and this was a death, when everybody's sharing, someone said about being unconscious here, but conscious there. Well, that was definitely my case in the third time. I have absolutely no shred of memory from here. When I go, I'm gone. And the only thing that brought me back this time was this little device. But the one before, it was the fastest thing. The best thing I can describe it as is being sucked out like a hydraulic tube and going as fast as you can possibly imagine out of here. And I was taken, and the way I say I was taken, it's not like I'm going, okay, I'm going to go. It's, and I'm probably, the experience of it is one of being as far away from here as you can possibly imagine going, yet being in the very center of it all. That's how I would describe it. And, where I found myself, and I can't even say that, because in that third death, in spirit, there's literally no words to describe my experience because I wasn't having an experience. There was no I, me, my to have an experience. But it wasn't nothingness either. It was full. It was as if you could experience everything, the all, and have it be completely, there's absolutely no thought, no time, no limitation of anything. There's not a me to experience it, but all there is awareness. There's all there is experience. And this is where many masters and mystics and people who have had anything even resembling close to that experience have difficulties in communicating. So the only way you can communicate it, sort of, is through poetry, because it evokes a certain kind of resonance within each and every one of us. When you hear it, you know it's true, it's there, because it's in the center of every one. You can call it anything you like, but it's complete, total. The silence is so loud, it drowns out everything else. There's nothing to be heard except for the silence. And there's no sensory perception whatsoever, because that sensory perception is this thing here, called the body. We experience things here as spirit. When we incarnate into this bodily vehicle, we turn on the brain circuitry and everything, and the chemicals and all these things in the body, the whole energetic field. This body's not a container. It's a total field of energy and consciousness. And as we incarnate in it, it shoots us all this information. And we put this information together in what you might call our mind, and we project it as the world we live in. And this is why there's however many of you in here, and each and every one of you, you can all go outside and go, oh yeah, I heard Michael Tamura speak. And it sounds like you all went to the same thing and experienced the same thing, heard the same thing, but I'll guarantee it's not the same at all. If you compare notes with the person next to you, after a little while, you're going to find that they had a very, very different experience than you did. And this is throughout our entire life, from beginning to end of a physical lifetime. Well, I'm one of those that was always aware from coming into this lifetime. We're talking about death and dying and near death and coming back. Well, every single one of you has done this. It's interesting for me to listen to all of you speak. That was more interesting for me than hearing myself speak. Is to hear you speak, and some of you prefaced yourself with, oh, I've never had a near-death experience or anything like that. That's not true. I hate to invalidate you. But I know for sure that every one of you in here has dropped dead many times. And people call that reincarnation and past lives and things like that, but really it's not separate lifetimes at all. A lot of times when people discuss reincarnation, people get into arguments. Do you have multiple lives or do you only live once? I don't have a problem with either. It's both. You really, truly only live one life. But it's a really long one. And just like you won't say that your life yesterday was a separate life from your life today, right? You'll say, oh, that's just my life. I lived yesterday and I live today, and most likely I'll be living tomorrow. You go back 10 years, that's still your life. It's one life. You just change clothes every day. Hopefully take a shower. And so what people talk about with reincarnation, incarnation, coming into a new body, that's for the soul. That's like clothing. Yeah. Our bodies get out of fashion, and we have to trade it in and be more up to date, right? And so we trade bodies. We do that with cars. You get so much mileage out of a car, and then you trade it in, and you get a new one. But it's still your life. So it's still one life. And when you start to really experience that inside of yourself, you'll find out that the person you're sitting next to, and you, the person in front of you, behind you, the person you're friends with, your family, the person you can't stand, the person you love, doesn't make any difference. We're all living the same life. There's only one life for all of us. And it's just that we tend to wear different clothes and pretend we're different people. And so where I was during the time my body, the heart and breathing and all that stuff stopped, supposedly that's what I hear from everybody when I came back. And the last thing, it was not even on my mind. Just like Raphael said, when you're out of here, you're out of here unless you have attachments here. The first time I died, 9 years ago, was very non-dramatic on the physical end of things. Well, dramatic in the sense of I was in excruciating pain, but it wasn't like, I was in an accident or anything like that, or a heart attack. I was just having a very, very intense, excruciating case of what finally somebody called it a traveling gout. Anybody have gout? I wouldn't wish that kind of pain on the worst villain. I've always had very, very high pain threshold. People would, say, God, how can you still be going on when you have that much pain? But that knocked me down. The only bad part of it, I had it all over my body. Usually a person has it in one big toe and it lays them out. It's so painful. I had it in everything, all the way to the sutures on my skull. I had it in my earlobe. It was unbelievable. And so I couldn't lie down, I couldn't stand up, I couldn't sit down, I couldn't do anything. So then I'm just kind of curled up on the bed. Raphael had gone to the store or something, middle of the afternoon, and I just slipped out. I remember exactly what I was thinking. I was having a talk with God right before that. I said, hey God, I've been through a lot of stuff, but this is a little bit, if this continues much longer, I don't know if I can make it. And then as soon as I slipped out, I had an escort. This beautiful archangel in a white gown, and he shooshed me up. It wasn't the same as this third time. He shooshed me up directly to the council. And it was sort of like being taken to the most sacred place at the same time it was very business. We're here to get to the point and discuss this important business, and yet felt very, very welcome. There were 5 of these great beings, including the escort, and I got seated right. It was at this long conference table, beautiful, like a wooden conference table in this very holy place. And I got seated right at the first chair, and there were 2 other beings on this side, 1 at the head of the table, and 2 more across from me. And they were all each individual. I recognized them. And it was not somber or anything. It was very matter of fact, very welcoming. And it was the first question, first thing is, well, you're done. Just like with Raquel, they said, you have done so much more, way beyond the call of duty, and you have done so much more than you counted on doing in this lifetime. So, would you like to stay here with us, or would you like to go back? And very much the same way as Raquel felt, I'm completely neutral. I'm saying, oh, great, I'm done. And I said, well, I decided to hand it back to them. I'm sneaky. I said, well, instead of me making any kind of a decision based on what I want, I said, I'm neutral, so if you could let me know, in your wisdom, what would serve the greatest good of not just myself, but anyone involved, whether I stay here. And I knew what it meant to stay there. I would continue my work from, quote, the other side as guide, which I already do in my other job. Some of you have met me in spirit, and I work just like some of your other guides, except I have a body somewhere in the world at this time. And so I posed that question to them, and they said, it was like not even an instant to think about it or discuss it. They all unanimously said at the same time, if you go back, you would be able to accomplish so much more. And so I said, okay, I'll go back. And it's that casual until I put my attention back on my body. It's not really breathing or anything. And I immediately realized the condition it was in. So at that point I said, as I'm being escorted out of the room, I said, well, I'm all for going back, but once I get back, I'm going to need some help healing that body, or else I'm not going to be much good for anybody. And the last thing I heard as I was being escorted back to my body was 5. And okay, so then the next thing, very similar to Raquel, boom, I felt my heart kicking back on and going, and I gasped for breath. And the pain was still just as bad as it was before. And I'm groaning and going, oh, thanks guys. Maybe I should have stayed it. And then a voice in my ear said, get up, turn on your computer and go search and do this Google search. They know about Google. And so I did, and interestingly enough, I never look at the commercial column, when you search something, there's always the advertisements. I never look at that, but all of a sudden I'm looking there, and the top advertisement was this thing called Gout Cure. And I thought, that's interesting. I mean, how much more exact can you get? And it's all natural, 100% natural. So I thought, oh, I like that. So I checked it out, and lo and behold, the write-up for that was obviously written by somebody who had it just as bad as I did. And this person traveled around the world to isolate these particular herbs and spices and things, substances, and put it in a little capsule, and it says it works. And you have to do these kinds of things in your diet. So I said, I'm willing to do anything. So I did that and started to heal myself. It took a few months, but now it's not a problem anymore. 2 years from that time when I came back, well, at the very beginning of this experience coming back, the way I described it to Raphael is this, well, I feel like I got reset to zero again. Complete clear slate. Like a baby, except coming into baby Huey's body. It's, it's an adult body, but inside, I was fresh as a baby. And I thought, oh, good, I get to do this again, but I don't have to go through people changing my diapers and telling me what to, just picking me up and putting me places. I didn't like that at all. And sticking things in my mouth. So anyway, the funny thing was, when I came back, shortly after that, somebody gave me a birthday present of, you ever heard of wasu massage? It's in the water, and the therapist takes you in this body temperature water and floats you around. Oh, it's a wonderful experience. I never had it, never knew what that was. Had this thing, and it's about an hour or something. And it's just like this water massage almost, and you're just floating. Yeah, it was just a beautiful experience, and I just wanted to go on and on. But then it came to an end, and then the therapist says, okay, get right off, and we'll meet in another room, and we have to have this counseling session. Afterwards, I went, and she's looking at me very strange, and she says, I've been doing this for 15 years or something, and I've never experienced anything like this. I said, oh, well, this was my first time, so I had never experienced anything like this either. and she said, no, you don't know what I mean, it's always a wonderful experience, she said, for me too, but this was different. The closest thing I can tell you, my experience of giving you this treatment, was when I got to do this with a newborn baby. It's like there's nothing, your slate is completely clear. And I said, oh yes. And she goes, you know about this? Yes. And she says, did you have like a metaphysical death experience? I said, no, I had a death experience. Not metaphysical. And she goes, oh, well, that explains it. And then I had this clairvoyant reading that was gifted to me, so a month or two later, and the clairvoyant says the same thing. She says, it's like you've been reset to zero. Complete clear slate. I said, yeah. And then I went to a doctor, and osteopathic, certain kind of a osteopathic doctor who works with energy, and she did a treatment, this biodynamic osteopathy treatment, and she goes, I've never experienced anything like this, except the closest thing was when I did this with a newborn. So, isn't that great? That was a rebirth, truly a rebirth. That was the first time. The second time was 2 years later, because I knew, okay, I agreed to come back, but coming back, that means I have to renew my commitment, a new commitment for being here. But I wasn't quite sure, okay, do I continue just where I left off? No, it didn't look like it. Slate was clear. But I still had, when we're dealing with time and space here in this 3D universe, you have this thing called schedules and contracts and commitments on a time-based thing. So I'm committed to the kazoo of people to teach and events to participate in and everything. It took me 2 years to finish out all my prior commitments from before death to after. So it took me 2 years to finish that. And when I finished that, I thought I was able to breathe a sigh of relief, and okay, I'm done with the old business, I can get on with the new business, and I had this other experience. I was at this Raphael and I got invited to a friend's birthday party, and it was at a healing center. We had a wonderful healing center, and there's quite a few people, and most all the people there were healers. So then someone finds out that my birthday was going to be in 4 days, and oh, gee, well, they sent somebody out, and without me knowing about it, and got another cake. So when it was time for the singing and everything, they brought out 2 cakes. And mine was like a forest fire on top. I thought I needed an extinguisher. And so then when it was my turn, this lady brings this cake to my face and says, okay, birthday boy, close your eyes, make a wish, and blow out the candles. So okay, close my eyes. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make a wish. And then everything went completely still. And inside my mind, in the middle, this golden glow starts and fills up the entire space of my being. And the only thought I had was, oh, yes, I would like to embody more of the Christ. And I thought, hey, what a nice birthday wish. I said, I'll go with that. Blew out the candles, everybody clapped, sang, and everything. Well, unbeknownst to me at that moment, Raphael was about 30 feet away talking to the host, and the host had shown her the healing chamber and everything, told her about his near-death experience, where he had a heart attack, but he wouldn't let the paramedics take him. He knew he had to deal with it himself, and much to the consternation of everybody around him. He locked himself into his healing room and worked on himself for 4 hours or 6 hours, something like that, and he's a very healthy guy right now. And so Raphael's thinking, God, why is this guy telling me about this at a birthday party? Right? And then she said when I blew out the candle, she got very afraid. She said, I saw you leave, and I knew you were going to die. But she didn't want to tell me that on the drive home or anything. She thought she'll wait for the next day when it's a better appropriate time. Well, next morning I wake up in total bliss. Limitless expanse of nothing but bliss. Raphael's already awake and taking care of the cats and dogs and everything like that. And I'm hearing the sounds in the background, but floating into this bliss. But it was just complete stillness and bliss and light. And then all of a sudden this little thought comes in. Oh, I have an important appointment. This man from Israel is going to come to see me today. He's the CEO of a worldwide foundation to educate and heal children. He was an Israeli man, and his best friend from childhood was a Palestinian man, both very successful businessmen, millionaires. And they were having lunch one day, staring at each other, listening to the horrible news about everything between their countries. And they said, we can't allow our children to grow up hating each other for no reason at all. And that's when they hatched this idea to have this nonprofit organization. And then they realized, they thought it was going to be between bringing peace and love between Palestinian and Israelis. But they said, oh, we can't exclude other children. And they made it a worldwide organization for children, for the healing and well-being and education of children. See? Right there. He knows what I'm talking about. And so then, this man, the Israeli man, says, they have ministers of finances, ministers from different countries on their board of directors, very impressive organization, with money flowing in and everything. And he decides, we're missing a piece. We're missing a very fundamental piece of the puzzle. And he said he took off 9 months from being the CEO of this big his profit-making business, which happened to be a medical supply and equipment business that specialized in making those stents for heart, coronary arteries. And that plays in the part here too. And so he decides, here's this scientific medical man, and he decides he's going to allow God to show him where to go during this 9 months until he finds his answer. And he just starts to pack up to travel for as long as he needs to go, for 9 months. And the first thing he gets is this thing. He's never heard of this place called Mount Shasta. This is where Raphael and I live. It's a beautiful, sacred mountain. And in California, he doesn't know anything about this place. He says, I have to go to this place called Mount Shasta. He finds out, flies to San Francisco, gets a car, and goes up to Mount Shasta. And then when he gets there, he's at this lodge, and then he sees a local paper, and there's an announcement. There's a 3-day conference called the Awakening Heart or something like that. And he said, I got to go to that one. He sits in the front row, and he's listening to all the talks. Well, I get on the stage, and the first thing I do is education of children. And that has to be taught soul to soul, spirit to spirit education. It's not about teaching the body and the mind anymore. It has to be, you have to get directly to teach those new souls coming into the incarnation. You have to teach them how to incarnate fully, to fulfill their purpose in life, right from the beginning. He heard that, and he said, that was missing. That's what I wanted to talk about and hear about. So he was waiting for me as soon as I got off the stage. And he ordered me. He says, this is what here, and this is the whole thing. And that was his first stop on his 9-month pilgrimage. He went right back to Israel after that. Yeah, it didn't have to take him very long. And so he made an appointment to see me on that Tuesday after the Monday night birthday party. I had my first appointment available, 10 o'clock. So that's what woke me up from this incredible bliss, and I should get ready. So it was kind of difficult, but I got myself ready. I started to get out of bed and do my... And next thing, it is like lightning and thunder inside of me. And I'm just crumbling to my knees, and I don't know what's going on. And right when that's happening, Raphael walks in, and she goes, what's the matter? Are you having a heart attack? And sometimes a little bit of training is dangerous, because during 20, I was a nurse. I was a licensed vocational nurse. I went through this whole intensive year training to become a licensed vocational nurse because I was going to be a doctor, and I wanted to make sure that was the right path. I enjoyed the nursing part, but I wasn't quite sure about, no, it doesn't look like the image I had in my mind as a child of becoming it didn't fit. In Japan, the term for medical doctor, school, and that's the image I have of a doctor, is a sensei, is to teach, who can heal, and who can give people spiritual guidance. And it's not what I saw at that time. This was in the early 70s. And so I learned during the nursing days that the lay people's symptom of a heart attack is, it feels like an elephant sitting on your chest. So pain, and I'm thinking, all I can visualize is this giant pink elephant sitting on my chest, and I'm trying that out for size, and said, no, if an elephant were sitting on my chest, I'd be crushed, and it doesn't feel anything like that. And so this is how my mind works, even in times of great crisis and pain. And so I'm kind of slightly laughing, and I tell Raphael, I don't think it's a heart attack. And then I remember the more medical symptomology from that time was radiating pain down the left, crushing chest pain with radiating pain down the left arm. Now there's all different other ways, but that's all I learned back then. And so I said, I don't have any radiating pain down my left side, and I don't have crushing chest pain. My pain was full-on body, and especially more on the right side, and more in the back. And so I thought, it's probably just some kind of really intense energy. So I asked Raphael, she's who I call not the Ghostbusters, I call rabbis. Would you give me a healing? I think that's all I need is a healing. This is pretty intense. Nothing like I've ever experienced before. So she goes into the living room, I go follow her, and she sits down, starts to work on me, and it helps a little bit. But I found I had to walk around. And this is the part I don't have any recall. She said, I start walking around the living room and chanting the Jewish prayer for the dead. I don't know any Jewish prayers of anything, dead or alive or anything. And I said, how do you, this is way later on, how do you possibly tell that it was the Jewish prayer for the dead? And she said, I just saw it and heard it on TV. They had this whole process, a documentary on it. And it was exactly what they did on the show. Well, I'm going to meet this man from Israel. And she was talking to a Jewish healer the night before. Isn't it interesting how these things happen? But I had to run outside. All I wanted to do was go to the grass. I wanted to be on the green grass with the sunlight. It was a beautiful day like today here. It's just gorgeous sunlight. I just needed to go be in nature. So I told Raphael, continue healing me. I'm going to go out to nature. And I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I didn't know what was going on still, but I knew I couldn't go to the hospital yet. I had to deal with something first. And I always have to follow my own intuition on a spiritual level in whatever I do, even if my life is on the line. And so I followed that. And I went downstairs in the backyard, and I collapsed on my knees, and my head went right down to the ground. And this is not near death. This is nearing death. I just fell over. And I'm out of my body, and I know my heart's beating and everything's still working in the body. It wasn't dead. I'm out of the body, and here I'm surrounded by these incredible spiritual masters in a circle all around me. And some of them, 4 out of the 5 that were with me in the council were there, and others. And so it was such a relief. I was so happy to see them, and I said, oh, thank God you're here. And they all moved back. And that was, at that moment, I flashed on, when Jesus was saying, my brothers, why have thou forsaken me? And I go, oh, wow. And I didn't feel forsaken. I felt tremendous compassion and love, but they're moving away. I had this expectation or something that they're going to swoop in and save the day kind of a thing. But no, they just stepped back, and it was very clear. They all, in unison, told me, no, this is your choice. You have to make the choice. We can't do anything. We'll support you in whatever choice you make, but it's your choice. And I knew, when they said that, this was a very important choice I had to make. I didn't know what the choice was. Any hints, guys? Because it's very difficult when I can still feel the pain and everything, and the body's having a very hard time. And so, thinking, okay, I have to have a starting point. I thought, what would most people think in a situation like this? And I thought, oh, call 911 or not, or I want to die, or I don't want to die, those kinds of things. And I looked at each one of those choices, and every single of those choices, I said, they're wrong because they're divisive. They're all either-or choices. And I realized the choice I have to make now is one of inclusive, not divisive or exclusive. It's not I realize the mind always thinks in terms of either or. Shall I go to the left or shall I go to the right? Is it yes or is it no? You like it or you don't like it, right? All dichotomies that's making up this life in this world. But where I was going, there's no dichotomies. So I decided, what kind of a choice can I make that doesn't divide life into either or, includes all. And it was a tough realization, because I realized I had to accept all conditions of life. If I chose life, because I already know, beyond the shadow of doubt, way before I was ever dead on the physical level this time, that this isn't it. You don't die, the body dies physically. So that was never a problem for me. And so I'm looking at, okay, if I choose life, what does that really mean? For many people, choosing life means either you choose life or death. Well, I knew the opposite of death is not life. Because life has no opposites. The opposite of death is birth. If you're born, you're going to die. But life is forever. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to choose life. What does that really mean? And I realized if I choose life, if I commit to choosing life, I have to choose all of life, not some of it. I can't say, okay, as long as my body's going to be healthy and everything for umpteen number more years, then I'll live. No. I can't say, well, I only want to live if my body dies and I get to be in heaven. No. So life includes all of these different conditions, here and there. And that was a tough thing to look at. It was very difficult. And I'm looking at, okay, if I choose life, I have to choose the whole thing. If I come back into this body and I'm totally incapacitated, if I'm a vegetable, somebody has to take care of me. That's still life. If I have diminished brain function, still life. And that impulse of, oh, if half my brain's gone, I'd rather stay dead. That's not a choice for me. So once I came to that, I realized, okay, this is going to be a tough road. Because I know when you make choices, that's not the end, that's the beginning. So I'm looking at this from out of my body, and I'm making this choice, and I already know, I've already been through that space of, I'm done with what I came here to do for the first part, and I made my new commitment to come back, to do more. And so, I have a free slate, clean slate. I don't have to be here. But if I'm going to be here, I have to be here all the way. There's no little bits or only if you meet these conditions, I'll agree to stay. No, that's not where it is. So finally I decided, okay, I can do it. Whatever happens, whatever conditions life throws at me, I'm willing to choose it. And next thing I know, I come back and I feel not fine physically, but I feel I have energy, and I go, okay, I can take my next step. And I came back, ran upstairs. Yes, I was able to run upstairs, and Raphael was huddled up with our cat and dog and giving my healing and very worried. And I said, great, I feel much better. But I could see a long road ahead. And so then I said, oh yeah, I have a meeting at 10 o'clock in town. I don't feel well enough to drive myself. Would you drive me? And she was happy to oblige because she's got other plans. So she gets the dog in the car and just me in the car, and we drive. And as we're heading, we're 2 minutes from our office in town. And we're driving, and she goes, now that I'm glad you're feeling better. Now that you're feeling better, why don't I just swing us around to the emergency and let them just check you out, It wouldn't hurt to have them check you out. I said, oh no. Okay, and I checked and I had a green light. Now I can go to the hospital. Well, I learned, don't go to the ER walking. Raphael and I walk in, and I'm, of course, laughing. right? And talking, and the triage nurse comes up and she looks at both of us back and forth. She says, "Which one of you is in trouble?" And she looks at Raphael. And Raphael says, "My husband's having chest pains and, you know, it might be a heart attack, whatever." She was right from the very beginning. And the nurse looks at her and she looked like she'd been run over, and I'm laughing and joking around. And so she says, "Okay." So she just doesn't take me seriously, the nurse. She hollers into the ER and says, "Another chest pain." And she looks at us and says, "God, you're the fourth chest pain to walk in the last 20 minutes." Says, "Never had that." And says, "The other three are fit as a, horse." And so she thought it was another kind of string of people with chest pains who had nothing wrong with them. So I go into the where the doctor's exam room is, and a little bit later she comes in and she asks all these questions, and she asked the question of, okay, the standard question on the scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain? And I said, "Oh, thank God, it's down to about 3.5 now." And she says, "How long have you been in this pain?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know what time it is." I had no idea of passage of time. And she said, "It's 12:30. I said, "Oh, it started just before 8:30. And she screams, "You've been in this for 4 hours? And you're just getting to the ER? I said, "I feel a lot better." And she starts scrambling. I'm hooked up to everything you can imagine. And as soon as she hooks me up, she runs to the phone. She's starting to, you can tell she's talking to a cardiologist somewhere. And I thought it was in the hospital. And she said, "Okay, they're sending an ambulance." Well, we live in this little mountain town. They're sending an ambulance from an hour and a half away because they didn't have a sufficiently trained crew to keep me alive from there to the bigger city hospital that's an hour and a half away. So 3-hour time it's going to take. And so she says, I have to give you this deadly medication. I'm saying, "Uh-huh." And she said, "So you have to sign this release because there's a 50-50 chance this medication could kill you." I blurted out laughing, and I said, "Do you know what you just said?" And she said, "I'm serious." And I said, I'm serious too." And she said, I said, "I'm fairly alive right now." And you just said, "If I sign this piece of paper, you're going to cut my chances down by 50%. And she goes, No. She said, "If you don't sign this paper, you have a 100% chance of dying. If you sign this paper, you'll have 50% that the medication is going to kill you before you die. For sure." I said, "Okay." And at this point, all I see, I'm in God's hands. It was just like this divine choreography in the whole place. And I knew the doctor wasn't aware of what was going on. So between the doctor and the nurses and all the medical personnel that went in and out of that place, and all the spirit healers and angels, everybody was working in unison, except most of the physical people didn't recognize. And I'm going, there can't be anything that goes wrong. And so I said, "You're the doctor, so this is your ER. Give me your best shot. What's your best decision?" And she said, "Oh, there's only one decision. You sign this, I give you the medication, and we hope it works." I said, "Go for it." And so I signed the paper, she gives me the injection, and I could tell it helped. Something is kind of clearing up. And she was showing me, she said, "See that EKG? That's called a tombstone, and everybody who gets that dies real quickly." Because that's why we call it a tombstone. And I said, "Wow, never knew that." Medical trivia. Very much. Tombstone, I get the image of a pizza. Which I can't have. Anyway. So anyway, we had a fun time. I had a fun time. And we were talking to the time we were waiting for the ambulance crew to come, and they came and strapped me up. And the look of relief on that ER doc's face when she finally strapped me onto the gurney and they took me on the ambulance, like, thank God I got rid of him. But while we were going, she came out with us and she said, well, Mr. Tamura, you know, she said, I've been an ER doc for about 20 years now, and she says, I've never met a patient like you. She said, I don't think in my entire career I've met a man in the midst of a major heart attack that was telling jokes and laughing about whether he's going to live or die. And I said, because if I'm going to go, I have to go laughing. I'm not going to go suffering and being in, you know, horrible place. Because I choose where I'm going to go after I leave here by the decisions I make. And she looked at me, she says, I have to think about that. I said, you do that. And so they carted me into the ambulance, and I got this young guy, and he's so sincere and just right there, you know, and he's sweating bullets because he's nervous. And I look up at his face, and he looks like he's at most a sophomore in high school. And I said, young man, how long have you been doing this? And he says, oh, next week I take my finals. God, I always joke that no matter what we do, we get trainees and we get first day on the job. And from toll booths to whitewater rafting guides to everything, we always get the first day on the job person. Trainees. He doesn't even have a certificate yet. And his mentor, his teacher, instructor guy is this grizzly guy in the front seat and hollering some instructions in the back. And I said, hey, I picked this kid, you know, he's not going to make a mistake because he's right on it. He's not talking about where he's going to go play golf next or, you know, anything. His mind is right on me and what it's going to take to keep me alive. So I said, hey, I'm in good hands. Everything's all worked out. But he's just nervous and sweating. And so I said, hey, don't worry. I'm not going to croak on you. And I clapped him. It was like it was rehearsed. As soon as the last word came out of my mouth, I'm going. And everything was crying. And during that death, that was the actual death experience. Was during that death, I'm going out the roof of the ambulance, and I'm floating up, and Raphael is furiously driving 70 miles an hour on mountain turns. You know, we're going over the pass. And she's trying to keep up with the ambulance in her SUV, big SUV. And I look down, and there she is. She's got her, and then she's tremendous clairvoyant. So she looks up, and she sees me going. Well, we have two different experiences going on because I'm up there going, hey, Raphael! She's going, literally, she's going, she's got one and she's going like this. And in my mind, I put words in her mouth. I'm thinking, oh, she's saying, if you leave me, I'm going to kill you. I always tell people, that scared me back. Oh, it's not working? There, okay. And I have to resuscitate the mic every So then I'm floating up and I see her fisting me and she's speaking out loud. And I go, see you later. And then next thing I'm in this celestial realm surrounded in front by 5 golden beings. And one of them steps down a little bit to come meet me and she turns into this beautiful female angel. And it reminded me of the Columbia Pictures the torch. If you combine that person with that kind of robe and everything, white robe, with Mona Lisa, a little bit, kind of mixture, it was beautiful. And she comes and she puts both hands on her crossed on my chest and says, not yet. Yes, it was like being sent to the principal's office. And I said, oh, I know. And I knew it wasn't my time to go all the way. And but I said, it's okay to check in once in a while, isn't it? And she pushes me back, and just with the most compassion, just pushes me back all the way down, back to the ambulance and down to the roof, and comes in to the ambulance and pushes me gently back into my physical body. And at that point, the poor kid, the paramedic in training, has the paddles in hand, and he's like this, and he goes, he's back, he's back, he's back! I said, sorry about that. You know, I won't do that again. And he's just looking at me like, God, I don't know about this guy. So he watched me the entire trip. And but after that, I felt great and ready to rock and roll. When I got to the hospital, they lost me. They were supposed to take me straight to the cardiac catheterization lab so that they can check to see what was going on. And the cardiologist and the anesthesiologist and the nurse, everybody was ready, all prepped, ready to go. And when they wheeled me through most of the hospital looking for the lab. So I had this extra ride. And when we rolled in, even that was just perfect. It's just, everything was orchestrated exactly right. And we rolled in, and the cardiologist was standing there, and anesthesiologist and the nurse. And I said, hi. And the cardiologist looks at me. I've never met these people before. Looks at me and says, you look good. And he checks all the papers and the strips and everything. He says, yeah, you had a really major heart attack. That shows on the EKG. But your EKG now is, I mean, as perfect as it can be, considering you had a heart attack. And your color's great. Your pulse is perfect. Your blood pressure's perfect. And how do you feel? Oh, I feel great. And I'm going, oh, good. So you don't have to cut me open or anything, do you? And he says, well, not yet. I said, good, let's keep it that way. And he said, yeah, we'll shoot you up to cardiac intensive care, and we'll watch you. But he said, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have to put a stent in you or something before you leave. They got to charge me for something. But I get sent up, and that night I had the best nurses, amazing, and great experiences there. Where each nurse that comes in on shift, I went through 3 shifts, and each one looks at my chart, and now they Google search you before they come and check you out. And so they read my website and everything, and so they come in and says, why do you have Dr. Mendelson for your cardiologist? And I said, Michael, he's great. I've never met him before today. He just really said hi and everything, but I don't know. He was picked for me. And he says, because, I said, why? And each of the 3 nurses said, well, we know you're like the spiritual healer, spiritual person. I said, yeah. Well, he's about the most conservative, straight-on, allopathic MD we've ever worked for. I said, yeah. And she said, well, usually, I mean, we've worked with other people who are into spiritual things and natural healing and this and that, and they just don't want anything to do with an allopathic doctor if they can help it. I said, yeah, I'm that way too. If I can't help it, you know, then I need one. It's just, but why someone who's so allopathic instead of kind of more alternative? And I said, well, because the spiritual side, I have it covered. I don't have the mechanical side. Yeah. If I need surgery, who's going to do that? I need a good person who's able to do that, right? Patch me up. And if I need medication, I need somebody who can do that. I can do the other side. That's no problem. And each one of the nurses walked out shaking their heads going, oh, we never thought of that. You should think about these things. You have to have, God is whole, all-inclusive. Doesn't eliminate this side from that side. And definitely certain times, certain kinds of things are not appropriate for everybody. But when you are aware this is all one life, then you start to find that everything falls into place. If you don't resist it, if you're willing to work with it, and so there's a lot of things I don't agree with. And so every time I run into that, they're going to give me this medication. Okay, I don't agree with that. And I know it can do more damage than good sometimes. But my practice is, okay, how do I accept this? And I have to get to the place where I'm not resisting it all. So I have to be, okay, well, like I said with that ER doc, you're in charge here, not me. This isn't my ER. If you came into my ER, I'll tell you what to do. But I'm in your ER, you have to tell me what to do. So that's how I go about things. And so then, that night, the third nurse says, we better check your EKG again. And he goes, oh, you better call the doc. There was another clot, and if they didn't do anything, I would have had another heart attack. So they rolled me in, got it all, and it only took a few minutes. And after that was finished, I knew it worked. And the doctor, the cardiologist, the anesthesiologist, and the nurse all stood there again. And they said, the doctor says, if I may say so, this is remarkable. I've done thousands of this procedure. He says, how long did it just take? Like 5 minutes? I says, yeah, that's what it felt like. He says, it was the fastest, most perfect stent insertion procedure I've ever seen or done. And I said, yeah, thank you very much. I knew you were good. So this is how it all works out. And this is why astrologers, the first astrologers that gave me astrology charts and readings, I don't know anything really about astrology, but I always thought of them like a doctor looking at a bad prognosis. When they look at my chart, they will look at it and they go, oh, you can tell they feel sorry for me. And a couple of them even said to my face, oh, you have a hard life. And I said, you're kidding. Because from the time as a kid, I felt like I was always the one with the charmed life. Always one who was blessed with all the good stuff. And so Raphael's much more of an astrologer, and she goes, oh, well, you don't understand. See, this is aspecting that and this, and I don't understand all of that stuff. But she said, yes, you have a hard life. You just don't know it. You never paid attention how difficult it is. Because I'm having a good time. I learned a long time ago to enjoy not enjoying. So everybody thinks I naturally enjoy everything in life, but it's not true. There's a lot of things I had to learn to enjoy not enjoying because I wasn't enjoying it. But when I learned to not enjoy not enjoying, everybody knows how to enjoy enjoying, right? When things are going great and it's fun, you enjoy it naturally, no problem. Everybody can do that. But how many of us can enjoy when it's not enjoyable at all? What's happening may truly be horrific or unenjoyable. But that doesn't mean we have to stop enjoying life and living it. And this is a very, very difficult situation when you're looking at death. And it's a lot easier for you to die than for a loved one to die, right? Yes, you know this very well. It really touched me when I was listening to all of your sharing earlier, the first half. I just wanted that to continue so I could sit here and listen. Because each one of you have tremendous courage. And you're on a difficult path. Nobody's on an easy. Well, once in a while I'll meet somebody who's on an easy path because they're on a vacation, spiritually. Okay? And you may have met some people like that. How I can tell is they have this pink sash across their front of their aura. That means as a soul, they're on a rest life. They're cruising. They're like going through the same life we all go through, except they're on a tour bus. They watch, and they go, oh yeah, this hard thing's happening here, and this war's happening there, and people are dying, and they just go through because they're on a vacation, because they've had it so tough. Sometimes they need to go on a little rest life where you don't incur karma, you don't incur more suffering. It's just getting a chance to recoup. Okay. But if you're here, chances are you're not on a rest. Then each and every one of us, in a very, very different ways, are having a very difficult time. Even Buddha said it's very difficult to be a human being. Oh, great. Yeah. Did you say I can go till midnight? 5:50, yes. And we have to be right on that 5:50. I'm notorious because somebody gives me an inch of permission and I take a mile. But when you go through loss, death is never a loss, but the dying process is to teach us how to manage what we feel as a loss. How come one person loses a ton of money and goes, oh well, that's just money. And the other person, I can't deal with this. Okay? It's not that different for everything in life. Most of you in here, you go, oh yeah, I understand that. If I lost a ton of money, maybe it will hurt a little bit, but I'll get over it. But that's different than loss of life. No, it's not. Anytime you experience loss, the other end of loss is holding on. The only thing you'll ever experience losing in life is whatever you're holding on to. If you're holding on to it, and that, whatever you're holding on to gets ripped away from you, it's going to feel like it's been ripped away from you unjustly, and you lost. And that thing, or person, or whatever experience is gone forever. No. Eternity is forever. Life is forever. You never lose it. And this is one of the things I teach people, if they're even considering killing somebody, don't do it. Because why would you want to kill somebody? Oh, I hate them. I don't want to ever see them again. Then you better not. The killing them is the last thing you want to do. Because if you do, you're going to see them all the time. You're not going to be able to get rid of them. They're going to be on your case. And the next chance they have to reincarnate, they're going to come back, and they're going to come back in the flesh as who? Your next door neighbor, your parents, your child, your best friend, or nemesis, or whatever. You're not going to get rid of them. The only way you're going to have find peace is this little thing called forgiveness. And you really don't forgive someone or something or yourself, because forgiveness is a result, not an action. Forgiveness comes from realizing the truth of the matter. When you start to experience what the truth is in a situation, it's the same as when everybody's had a dream, right? And most people have had nightmares. And when you wake up in the morning or wake up from that dream and the monster's chasing after you or the killer is chasing after you or whatever, and you wake up and you go, oh, your heart's beating and everything, but you go, oh, thank God, that was just a dream. It wasn't real. Life still goes on, it's real, but that nightmare was a dream. It was in your mind. It's conjured up. That's forgiveness. When you realize, oh, that part that I was so disturbed about, so unhappy about, so angry about, so afraid of, that was just a dream. What's another word for a dream? A movie, right? A movie is like a dream, isn't it? It's made up by Hollywood or the movie producers. Some of them is really so great. You're in the movie house, you're watching, and you're so absorbed in it. Your heart is pounding, and you're breathing hard, and oh no, don't do that, don't do that! And you're right in it until the lights go on. Oh, that was a movie. Oh, that's really realistic. Well, we make movies in our own mind way more realistic than that. So what happens when someone dies, especially what happens when a child dies? I want to tell you a quick story. One time I saw this woman who was a high-level nurse. She was PhD, teacher, nurse, top-level nurse. And she's sitting there in total racked in guilt. I haven't seen anyone so racked in guilt. So I sat next to her and I said, oh, and there's this beautiful, beautiful girl flipping around her. And I said, did you lose a daughter? And then, wow, the floodgates open, she started crying and crying and crying. And I said, you didn't kill her. And she said, yes, I did. I said, no, you didn't. She's so bright. I said, bright? She was beautiful as a child could be. I mean, physical appearance, heart, and incredibly intelligent. Bright. I mean, someone that any mother would love to have as a child, right? Would hope to have a child. Guess what? This beautiful soul had very, 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 very few takers for parents. Why? Because she was going to die when she was 9 years old. How many of you who would be thinking about having a child would agree to having a soul come in as beautiful as and intelligent and perfect as a child could be, for knowing that, oh, and then when the 9th year comes, you're going to be hit by a car and gone. You're going to go, I think I'll wait for the next one. Right? It's too hard. But the love this mother had for this soul was so huge. And this soul had no takers and she had to come in to do, at this particular time, 9 years of work so that she can go on and get to her next step. And she says, okay, I'll take it. So she has 2 brothers. This woman has 2 older sons. The father, the 2 sons, and the girl were in the car. And guess this is the part that she was so stuck on, is she's the one, and why she felt she killed her child, because it was Sunday. It was the only day she had to clean the house. And it's so difficult cleaning around everybody. She just said, hey, Daddy, could you take the kids for an ice cream cone? All I need is another half an hour and I'll be done with this cleaning, and then, you guys can do whatever. Well, the girl says, Mommy, I don't want to go. And she grabbed onto her skirt saying, please don't make me go. And the mama says, hey, you like ice cream, and it's only going to be half an hour, and I just need half an hour to clean the house, and you just go with Daddy and your brothers, and then you could come back. And the girl's almost crying, and she's okay, and so the brother comes and says, okay, come on with me, and you can sit on my lap and the whole bit. And so she had her head on one of her brother's lap when they went a block and a half and a truck broadsided them. The father and the 2 brothers, not a scratch. The girl died instantly. Because it was her time, and that was her way out. Quick and simple. No pain, no looking back. But that put Mama and the rest of the family in total hell. So that's called spiritual growth. That's called the mother having to really start to look for the truth of what is the situation and what's my relationship to this precious being. And so once she realized that, boom, and the rest of the family just went on to great things. But it took a little time. It took quite a bit of time to heal themselves, but that whole healing isn't for a sickness. Grieving is not a sickness. Having cancer is not a sickness for the soul. It is for the body, maybe, but it's not a sickness for the soul. It's learning. We're here to learn. It doesn't matter who you are, you're here to learn. And each one of us has tremendous learning opportunities in this great school. This is a greater university than anybody. You can put all the great universities in the world together. It wouldn't even stand up to it. And it's called your life. So we all come in here to learn, and we all learn different things. And I know about these things because last lifetime I died as a 7-year-old in Hiroshima. Heard of it? Made in Japan. I had a blast. That's another thing. My little paramedic in a box thing, that flash, electric flash here and the bright light there, going back between the two, reminded me of that life, the death in that lifetime, because that one, in the physical, the last thing I saw was this intense flash. And then I stopped midway and was met by my guide, just very similar to what Raphael's experience was. And he said, well, what would you like to do now? And I said, he showed me what was going on in the devastation of the atomic blast on Earth in Hiroshima. And when I saw that, I said, oh, that reminded me, that's the reason I was born. I have to be here on the physical plane, needed a few years in that body so that I could be in spirit here, like a ghost, right? Except the conscious ghost. A ghost is a ghost because they're unconscious, they're not aware that who they are. But I had to be here as a spiritual being without a physical body to help the people who were devastated in a way that their minds couldn't comprehend. It's not like me, as a soul, they look back and go, oh, there's pieces of my body, I must be dead. No, it's when you're vaporized. 1 minute you're walking, 1 minute you're tilling the land or something, and the next thing that happens is you don't know where you are, why you're there, what happened, and there's no body to go back to, and you're devastated as a soul. So there's still more souls recovering from that. There are some of you in here who's been in a similar situation as I was in that incarnation at the end, sometime during World War II, and some of you were in Europe working with souls who were in agony in the Holocaust. And some, maybe a couple of you were even in China helping the souls who were victims of the atrocities there. So when things like that happen where humanity comes up with the worst type of, there are great agreements among souls to help each other out. During 9/11, there were so many, I knew that was going to happen a year before it happened. And there were so many of us in spirit attending to the people who were not able to comprehend what happened. This is the practice of dying. When you know how to die correctly, a piano, and you die and you go, oh! A flat minor. That struck a common chord. Anyway.
Oh, hey!
Yeah, musicians in here. So, it's how do you die in grace? I've been practicing for going on 40 years to make a graceful exit. So 32, 33, 34 years before lifetime, I've been practicing every day how to die correctly. Because when I was 20 years old, I met my spiritual teacher. We were having breakfast at his place, and he looked at me out of the clear blue sky. This is the way he talked and taught. He'll go from talking about if the Oakland A's is going to win the series or not, to, by the way, Michael, did you know that you have a choice in how you wish to die? That's the kind of conversations we had. And that one, years old, I knew as a person, I knew that I had a choice in how I wished to live. But I never thought about I had a choice in how I wished to die. So that really got me. And then he waited, and then he said, you know, for example, you can die in pain and suffering, or you can choose to die in love, at peace with yourself. That was a no-brainer for me. I said, I'll go for the latter. And so, to die in love and at peace with myself. And that's when my journey started. So, and I've been practicing and looking into this ever since. Gotten pretty good at it. Been dead 3 times for sure.